Was that you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured it was.
It was for,
I didn't have one, so I didn't know.
Yeah, let's get moving.
Covered.
All right.
Gail myself.
It's Matt, the
I
one
figured
that's
it.
doing
Yeah.
this talking.
I asked for him back in December and I didn't get his.
There we go. All right. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is a work session of the Mayor and Borough Council of the County of Ocean, Borough of Seaside Park, State of New Jersey, held on Thursday, June 24th at 7 p.m. Pursuant to the provisions of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was properly provided by sending a copy of the notice to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger. Notice of the meeting of the governing body has also been posted in the corridor of the municipal building as well as in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call.
Thank you, Councilman Amabile.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Dr. McHugh.
Here.
Councilman Kraft.
Here.
Councilman Legori.
She may not be with us this evening. She's ill.
Thank you. Council President DeMichael.
Here.
Mayor Peterson.
Here. The first item on the work session agenda is a special presentation, and we welcome members of the Environmental Advisory Committee, and the topic and theme focuses on the distribution of native plants as well as magnets. And we've got Ann Boyce is here to...
We're not going to make you wait. We're going to distribute the magnets first so you can look at them. As I have a few words.
And we also welcome Lillian Amabile and Cindy Cleva, and thank all of them for all their work.
It's very nice.
Oh, it's a new one?
It's the new one.
I've got them. Yeah.
Very nice.
I saw it the other day. Yeah, me too. Wasn't it good?
These are
Thank you. Very nice.
these are the magnets that we have come up with this year. In previous years, we've done the monarch butterfly, the blue claw crab, and the osprey. So we decided to shift gears a little bit, and we moved to the flora that we have here in Seaside Park. I'm not going to tell you what's written here because you certainly all can read it. But a little bit of the history of the dunes is that it was over 40 years ago. It was a fourth grade teacher, Mr. Glenn Wake, who taught here in the Seaside Park Elementary School, who first started taking his class up to the end of the street, and they started planting grass. That was his science lesson, ecology lesson, and from that, the borough picked up the vast project that you see of these dunes that are up to 40 years old. They certainly were supplemented and augmented during that 1 or 2 year period after Sandy, but that built on those dunes that had already been established. So we were way ahead of the game of a lot of other towns along the strip here. But again, I always go back to Mr. Conway because I just thought he should, to this day, still be getting credit for that. The 3 plants that we selected, I'm sure are very familiar to you if you walk along the boardwalk. There is nothing prettier in the spring than when you walk along there and there are those, the roses are all in bloom, the beach plums out of the little white flowers, they're all in bloom, right on into the fall when the roses have those big orange hips and there's goldenrod in bloom. It really is a beautiful, beautiful natural area. So, we've given you all magnets. I want you to certainly appreciate, as I'm sure you do, the plantings that are up there. Last fall and this spring, there was another project to plant up there, specifically these 3, because the dune grass that is planted does not thrive on the western side of the dune, all right? So for the stability, the root structure of these plants gives us that stability. So you will see, I believe it was the last 4 blocks on the south end of town were planted last fall. And you see them, there are groups of 3. And then this spring, it was planted up at the north end of town. And I have to say, Eric did a wonderful job in getting these plants secured in where they are. Almost every single one of the plants that was planted last fall has survived and is in leafing right now. And I'm sure following those, planting directions that they followed, along with Kevin from Atlantic Plants, and I believe it was Mr. Bob Hopkins,
Yeah.
who was instrumental also in spreading a lot of information about these plantings. So they've been tended to and have thrived under our TLC. So this is this year's memo.
And where are the plants going?
They've already been done, all these plants are planted.
Where are they going? You said they're leaving.
It's a joke,
Don't
son.
you have a mask that you have to wear?
It's a joke, son. It's a joke.
Thank you very much, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Lily and
you.
Cindy and everyone. And of course, you mentioned Ann Glen Wake, and thanks to the municipality, the school board at the time, fellow teachers, there was a tree dedicated in
Yes.
his honor right by the school,
On
which
the
is
south side.
fortunately
Yep.
still thriving there. So you're absolutely correct. And a lot of people in recent times get thanks, and you mentioned some of those leading the way. Lily?
Since we're talking about native plants and the magnet has 3 of them, I just wanted to add that on June 11th, I thank the mayor and the council that came to the Osprey dedication. We also had some native plants for distribution then too. We gave out a total of 120 plants to homeowners.
Wow.
Milkweed and goldenrod. Milkweed, essential host plant for the monarch, and goldenrod, wonderful nectar for the monarchs before they take that long journey back to Mexico. So just want to thank the DPW for setting up. Eric was fantastic and his team, and we had a wonderful day in spite of the dreary weather. So just wanted to add about those native plants.
Thank you.
And I have one more thing to say.
Yes?
While we're on a positive note of thanking people. All right, the illustrations that are on this magnet. Sandra Martin, I was spending about an hour with her. Oh my God, it was over a year and a half now, because due to COVID. That we looked for, it was basically the botanical illustrations of these plants. I took the ones that Sandra so graciously looked for me and went over to Caddis Island. And one of the naturalists over there she made the illustrations less scientifically drawn for me and made it what you see here. Then my neighbor, he's 90+ years old, he's a beautiful artist. So I went over next door to him and I asked him to help me with the colorization. So he gave me my little tutorial in art. So there are people that have helped us along the journey, which I think has made it really special. So thank you.
Very good. Thanks, thanks again, Ann.
Now, Grace.
The next item on the work session is a discussion of background information, ordinances, the issue of fire pits. And I know some on the council had inquiry from the public. Issues had arisen in certain neighborhoods. And this issue did come up of the council some time back. I believe it was last summer, or toward the end of last summer.
Right.
And we accumulated some ordinances, some input from other communities. And I know the chief also got some ordinances, got some regulations, and has some research. And the planning board back then looked into it, but nothing really has happened till it's now come to a head again, so. I know.
Well, I've received numerous complaints about the fires being like bonfires size from several residents around town. So I had spoke to the chief and I asked him to contact Chief Tumalo, and I think Tom also worked with the chief as well. So if the chief wants to speak to the regulations and what?
We have to follow the state regulations because we don't have an ordinance in place.
Okay.
Talking with Mike, one of the restraining the DEC right now down on Island Beach.
Okay.
His concern were the bigger pits. He said we have some homes in town that have built very large fire pits. They were built without permits. He knows the addresses and everything. He said those were real dangerous ones. He said those are throwing up ash.
Right.
Causing problems. He does not have problems with the chimeneas or the fire pits you get at Lowe's. So, but I want to, if there's ever an issue, call, we can act on this, we can do something about it. And I can tell you, whenever the fire department responds, that is put out. Chief Tumalo orders it, that is put out.
Okay, because, I mean, I used to have a fire pit years ago, and I mean, but I never had it going like I've had neighbors say to me that behind their house, their backdoor neighbor would, like, it was 5 to 6 feet high.
It can't be, I know the state regulation, it can't be bigger than 3. So, and then if you decide to do an ordinance, you can do just that, anybody who sees fit. If it's our town,
Okay.
5,500 lots.
Also, people were complaining about the smoke going into their houses, you know, with the windows open, and, you know, that was another thing too that people were complaining about.
I think a distinction can be drawn between wood-burning ones and natural gas or
Right.
propane. And you don't get that smell, at least to the
Right.
extent from natural gas
Right.
or propane fire pits, but do from wood. And I know there's one in our area, we get a worse smell. The top of the bad list comes from those that collect beech wood off the beach, because some of it has creosote in
Right.
it, and really is not good for you.
Right, it's not good for you to breathe in either.
No, so there's a whole hierarchy of what people burn too.
Okay.
That's true.
And that's the reason why that, you know, I talked to the men and asked to put this on, because some of us have experienced, I haven't with my neighbors, you know, like I said, I used to have a pit years ago, but it was more to the street, it wasn't in my backyard. But anyway, so I think we should really consider putting a comprehensive ordinance together that appeases, you know, the fire regulations, and also,
And we have at least 3 or 4 here that have a pretty good start. We could.
And they follow the New Jersey Uniform Construction Fire Code. I kind of pulled that, looked at it, looked at what was already in place with some of these other ordinances, and they're all pretty uniform to that. So I think it's pretty straightforward.
I believe our police chief, Jim, had mentioned that Point Pleasant is the one that, I guess he feels closely resembles what we should be doing in our town. So we can use that as a baseline
Yeah.
and then tweak it based on other towns, if there's something from theirs that we would like to add.
Do we want to have the committee, the code zoning, or go get it to Steve's
You
office?
can go right to Steve and,
And look at this Point Pleasant one and try
Right. You're okay
to
with
draft that's similar, adapted to Seaside Park, and then we could work through if there are any kinks. Is that?
yeah, well, because the descriptive stuff, when it comes to spacing and distance, they're all pretty similar.
I do know there's a related,
But,
So, but the problem is, what exactly do you want and what
All
you
right,
don't
I'll-
want?
well,
I
we
think
could do-
the
you wanna
committee,
do a
I really
committee?
think a
All right,
committee should
we'll
do
do
a
it.
little
Okay.
discussion
Yeah.
and give me some direction. I mean, I gave you a copy of Surf Cities, she
Yeah.
gave you Point Pleasant.
Okay.
I think Beach Havens is in here. I really think you need to look at it and say,
Okay.
Lavalette's in here, here's the direction we want, because I'll sit and look at these and go, okay, what do you want?
All
So
right.
I think a little direction would be appropriate
yeah,
to,
we'll be fine, we'll do it.
to what you want, you think you want in Seaside Park in terms of any combination of the provisions that are in here. And then give me that direction, I'll be happy to draft an
All right,
ordinance
it's a good
accordingly.
idea.
Yeah, for me to
Code,
just try and figure
committee
it out,
take
sort
it
of.
on.
while
Right,
we're
Jim?
discussing
Yes, sir.
it, I think there's a related issue, and the planning board talked about this last summer. We have our vice chairman is here. There's an issue of setbacks. Some people have put them very near, let's say, a bedroom window of their adjoining
And
neighbor.
that also
So-
is another thing too, so we really have to look at that too.
Yeah, some of these towns don't talk about setbacks at all. It looks like some do. So that's something I think we could consider. I can't
Yeah, we'll
remember
make sure it's
if there was a
included.
specific recommendation from the planning board, but they did talk about it.
For example, Point Pleasant is 10 feet
Yeah, Point
From a
Pleasant.
from a property line.
Yeah.
And then you have garages in some homes
you
that
think-
they don't, that are just detached, and that can, become an
See,
issue.
some of the old, if I'm right, if I remember correctly, some of the properties had 20 feet front setbacks, if we remember that. Years ago, we had that, and then it was 15 feet in the back. Now, it's back to 15 feet in the front, and I think 20 feet in the back. Am I correct, Marty? Okay. More or less?
And also, remember, there's a difference between a bonfire, a contained fire pit, and then an enclosed outdoor fireplace. All three are different, and all three could have different setbacks, regulations. I hate to be, because the Uniform Fire Code and the International Property Code talks about those three different types of burns: open
Right.
burning bonfires, contained fire pits, and fireplaces.
Well, I think most of the complaints that we all have received were about basically people putting bonfires, like
Yeah.
Fire
having
pits that are just
raging
over the top,
bonfires,
right.
yeah.
This is for fire pits.
Well, we can mention,
Well-
them and just keep it, so
Yeah,
it
have
stays
the-
very
I think you probably want
standardized, but
to.
then, yeah.
The committee then come up, we don't want to put this on the back burner, so to
No.
speak.
No, we'll,
Is that a pun?
Yeah, pretty poor attempt at one.
Was that?
But
No,
it's
we
sort
can-
of a season, it's in the summer, but then again in the fall, this is a
Sure.
problem. So it's both, really.
right,
So if it
okay.
goes to committee, give me a little direction.
Yeah.
I would definitely be concerned with setbacks. The Uniform Fire Code does provide for height on a bonfire, like the chief said, so there is
Right.
uniform fire codes and
Right.
that apply
Great.
setbacks from a structure, for example, if it's an
Yeah,
open
but some
bonfire.
here say 10 feet, some of
Right.
them say 6 feet, some say
15,
5 feet.
right.
Of the towns, right.
Yeah.
That's why I pulled the,
And then from a property line or a fence line, yeah, these are all considerations.
okay. We will do it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is a continuation of a discussion that we have had back from April 22nd. And I had brought up, and everyone had been very aware of this issue. I think different groups have commented to us through our contacts, liaisons, fishing groups, environmental groups, other towns, and it entails the construction of two different wind farm projects off the coast of New Jersey. And they're both of 100 turbines plus. Some have called it a construction site. There are issues related to the migration patterns of the nearly extinct right whale. There are issues as to the humpback whales, and all of us have enjoyed each year, the last few years, there are more and more coming right by Seaside Bar, literally, and right in the very waters along with migratory birds. The issue entails the location of the wind farms as well as what has been categorized as fast-tracking them and not going through the public hearing process, scrutiny and seeking input from any and all affected towns, affected groups, individuals, fishing community, and the like. We've sent a letter to that effect to the state and federal officials involved. What has happened recently and why this is back on the agenda entails an urgent request from the League of Municipalities, and there is a bill now pending in the New Jersey Senate and the Assembly that would not only fast-track wind farm constructions, but all of the ancillary construction related to them, and totally nullify and bypass the local municipalities as well as the counties. That, in what some have called a rubber stamp of the projects, and they may be extremely positive in the long term for the energy future of the state and the country, but the issue is they're blocking the public, they're blocking towns such as ours, Ocean County, all the coastal communities. And one of the, I don't know how you'd call it, trunk lines, but the lines off of the proposed wind farm project actually goes right near us through Island Beach State Park. It's proposed to go under one of the parking lots, under the road, under the dunes. So it has a direct impact on us. It may ultimately be deemed to be the right thing, positive, it may not, but they're bypassing the municipalities totally in this bill. So the League of Municipalities is asking us to adopt a resolution opposing such efforts and to allow input from municipalities. And you still see that as item D in the League of Municipalities update, and that the BPU would be given authority to preempt and supersede all necessary local approval, any and all projects to construct wind farms, and that's in the towns as well. So I had Sandy, and I think I had her copy a lot of this for us. There's some headlines. There's an AP story here that was in the Trenton papers. The bill would preempt local say over wind farm projects as well. And we've already talked about the impact of how close some of them are proposed to be to the New Jersey coast, and this is another issue. So I don't know, there's a draft of a resolution on for the regular meeting. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to read it all. It's a lot of literature, but I don't know.
Most unsettling thing is
Yeah.
that they allows them to do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's really just bypassing.
No,
us.
it's dictatorship
Yeah.
is what it is, I'm sorry.
I'm in
but-
favor of it,
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
certainly in favor of it. sure.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Yes, it's on the regular meeting agenda, the resolution that the league would support as well.
Okay.
And you see there's a letter that I had gotten by email. I put that on here too. It was about our original April 19th, the letter I wrote, and you see it's not signed. It's from the Department of the Interior and Amanda Laporte, Director. And it says basically, thank you for your comments, and we're conducting a study, and we're aware of your concerns, is kind of in a nutshell. It just happened to come right at the same within the last few days too. The next item on the agenda is discussion to nail down a date for the townwide yard sale. I think we've had some input previously from members of the community who thought the third weekend of August was too late. And at that time, some of the families with college-age high school kids had really started the school
Right.
practices and all that, and there's not as many people that particular weekend, right before Labor Day. And I know we've compared notes, looked at Lavalette had theirs, Island Heights, Pelican Island, a lot of them had them early in June, so there was some thought initially of moving it up, whether it's one of the other weekends in August or even earlier. So I don't know. I know Joe's waiting for us to get to him and maybe text him right after, because he's going to put this on the website, and he's held off up until today, just kind of to get our final say and what everyone thought.
I don't mind it earlier. I mean, this year, I guess we'd have to do it earlier in August would be the
August 7th
appropriate.
is the
But future-wise, I mean, I think the spring, in my view, is kind of makes sense. You're kind of cleaning up and getting ready for the season. People are looking for items to kind of get there. So maybe next year we could even do it earlier, like in
Maybe
a
even
June, like a
twice.
June or something.
Yeah,
You know, June is, but I think for this year, I think doing it early in August would be.
Is August 7th the first Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So we can do August 7th and then possibly talk about doing two,
Two
like
next
one in
year.
the early
It's a good
spring,
idea, the
like
spring
May,
and the
spring
late summer.
cleaning time, and then maybe one in
Yeah.
the summer.
And we'll have to, I'm get
people
Joe
that
on and
own
maybe
summer homes.
coordinate with all the other towns, make sure we're
Right.
not.
You know
For
what, though,
example, I think
I
Pine Beach is in
honestly,
April, I think.
Okay.
but honestly, you know, it causes such a disruption in the street and everywhere else. I don't know if I'm really for having two of them. I mean, I don't care about the date,
Okay.
frankly, but I just think two's too much.
Well, that's
You
why,
have to be
if you're doing it
considerate of-
pre-season, that's kind of really another benefit, is that you're kind of getting that access to the street, though you're losing the volume of people, so it kind of has
Yeah,
two
but it's-
sides of it,
I
you
mean,
know?
the people that are here aren't all from Seaside Park, they come from all over, and we have to be considerate too of other towns when they have theirs, you know?
Well, that's why we'd have to coordinate.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, I think.
Most of them
it's
are
a lot.
in May. I think Pine Beach may be the only one that's in April.
Well, the,
But we could discuss that.
I don't know, I
Joe
just
can
hide
look
inside
that
my
up.
house
Future.
during that day, honestly, usually.
Oh, well, I think we could make that decision for next year, but for this
Yeah.
year, I'm perfectly fine with moving it to an early, to that early week in
August
August.
7th.
I think.
August 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 7th is the town
And the rain date, I guess, was Sunday. Is that how we usually do
Yes,
it?
yeah.
And those were the printed itemized items. I know some on the council maybe had other concerns.
I did, I wanted to regroup and go back to the pickleball courts, because while we were planning on maybe lining all of them, there's been some kind of pushback to say we want to keep tennis courts completely
For
tennis
tennis
courts.
players.
Right, well, without any blue lines obstructing their ability to play tennis, and then doing all of them was kind of what we were thinking, which would make each court available for both pickleball and tennis. So I kind of thought maybe a compromise would be to do the second court and have two with the pickleball and keep two completely alone, and then revisit at the end of the season and see what the public wants. I mean, I think that's kind of a fair
well,
way to
I'm
look at it.
okay with that.
For pickleball people take over and
I
give
took, I,
them
we,
Right.
I went down and I looked
Right.
at the lines on
That's right.
the tennis court with the pickleball, and I know
Right.
nothing about pickleball.
Right,
And the lines were, I took a picture, I can send it to you if you want me to.
no, I went down.
I
And
think
you
we all
did,
did.
and
No
then,
need, no need.
then I went to Sergeant John Lyons,
The basketball.
the basketball court, and they have it lined
Oh, they do too, okay.
for pickleball, but it's in a darker yellow color.
Right.
And I sent it to the mayor because he's a basketball player, and I just wanted to have what he thought. Did
Yeah.
it seem like the yellow lines?
I mean, I
You know
think,
what-
yeah.
It's, I mean, as a
Didn't seem
borough
distractive
resident
to me,
pointed out
but-
to me that, you know, when you're playing volleyball in high school, she's a coach, she was a former coach. She played volleyball in the high school basketball
Right, yeah, on the court.
court,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you, because my brain is, and she said the kid, you get used to the lines, but to me, those light blue lines, I thought that they were nice, to
No,
be
well,
honest with you.
we did get some emails. and
I did.
some-
I know, I read
yeah.
them.
And so, while I didn't feel that it bothered me, you know, I can't speak for the other person, so I feel like that's the only way to be fair.
Yeah,
Do
just-
two and
I
two.
agree.
And then the pickleball, the two are together on that western portion there.
Yes.
They can do their tournaments and what have you. The tennis is there. I think the problem is that most people are gonna go early in the day or like this time of the evening when it's cool, so you're gonna have everybody kind of at once.
Right.
So that's really the only way to really keep it fair. And then let's see what happens at the end of the season, and we could revisit how the response from the public is. I
And
think
we-
that's kind of the.
No, I
that's
think
fair.
that's a good.
Maybe it's a start there.
That's a start.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then we could direct Eric to just do the one instead of four.
We thank Eric and thank Tom. I know they
Yeah.
got the quotes together and they were very reasonable.
Yeah, they were, right.
Yeah, they didn't paint the lines though, yeah.
No,
No.
no, they were waiting. They were actually.
I think what evolved in the last week was that there were some emails and some other people that had, you know, voiced their opinions, so the timing was kind of good, I think, in the sense that this way, you know.
0 hours.
Actually, I forwarded one to Eric,
Yeah,
but, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm no Rod Laver, you know what I mean? But, I mean, where we lose that. But,
I was gonna ask you, but.
I played tennis a bit, and I played volleyball on basketball courts. I played you know, I don't know, I think you get used to the lines frankly, but it almost seems like there's a, I don't know if you guys ever skied and snowboarded, but there was a little bit of a prejudice almost when the snowboarders started, you know, from the skiers, and it seems kind of like this is a little bit what it is, you know? I don't know, but I don't really care, personally.
Compromise would be 2 and 2.
I think you should be fair to both.
Yes, compromise 2 and 2.
So we'll tell Eric to do 2 for this year, and then we'll
Well,
keep.
Yeah, just one
Just add
additional.
one more.
One more,
One
yeah,
more.
he's already got one.
I
That's-
believe that we have,
All right.
I'd like to comment
Well,
if Mayor.
is that the last
It is, yeah.
item? All right.
Yeah.
So that being said, anyone else on the council?
Yep.
We'll hold those thoughts and go into the public for any questions, comments as to the agenda items, and we have one. So if you could, anyone has that, they could give their name and address to the record.
I'm going first, ladies, unless anybody else wants to go. My name's Terry Say. I live at 300 South Bayview Avenue, and I want to thank the council for reversing the 9 o'clock opening at the 13th Avenue Playground back to 8 a.m. So that's fantastic because it's cooler temperatures in the morning. While I appreciate and agree that it might be nice and fair about the pickleball, 2 courts, and, you know, we have the single court already. Just so that you know, I coached for 14 years lacrosse, and on a football field, it's lacrosse lines, it's soccer lines, it's football lines, and pickleball is the fastest growing sport across the country. In Florida, they're building pickleball courts now instead of tennis. And while I love all the tennis ladies, and many of them wrote the council, and I'm good friends with them, there's a lot of pickleball players. Lavalette has courts dedicated completely to pickleball, several of them. Bailey, we go out there, there's 8 pickleball courts. There's people waiting in line to play. And there's like 50 people every day, Monday through Sunday, that go and play. And it's a very collegiate, warm, and friendly environment over there. There's 1 court right now, and I love the fact that you want to consider 2, but we haven't even started the season. And people from, we came right at 8 o'clock, and we played for an hour, and more people were coming, and they warmed up on a tennis court, but they couldn't play pickleball because there's no lines. So, I love that you're gonna do the 2, but I would really suggest that unless you have the actual lines and a net for the basketball court, you can't play pickleball on the basketball court. It's nice to have the lines, but you need the mobile net, which I'd be happy to fundraise for the town to buy one for the recreation to have an extra court. But I really think to reconsider, everybody gets used to it. And tennis can play on the tennis courts, they've had them for years. It's happening all over, and I just think, go for the 4. Go for the extra 3. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
But I'll take 2. I'll take 1.
All right.
I'm not greedy, but I love the 4.
Last meeting was at 4, now we're at 2. So.
No.
Is that a
I'll
threat?
take the extra 1, but if you want to go for all of them, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean,
I said compromise is 2 and 2. That young lady's got a valid point. As you know, young lady, there'll be somebody over there, oh, I gotta play tennis, I can't play with the
The
pickleball.
disadvantage is that you can play tennis on all 4, but if you don't have the lines painted on any one, you can't play pickleball.
I think all,
You were able to play, but you can't go to lines.
Are the,
Well,
are the
yeah,
2
you are
other
right.
courts
That is
doubles or
correct.
singles for tennis?
they're all the same.
No, one's a single. There's a
Well, you
single
have
court
one pickleball
nearest
court
to the bed.
dedicated right now.
Yeah, that's where the.
So,
Yeah,
my
that's a
understanding
single.
is, listen, I don't wanna cause any disrupt. If you're gonna go for just one extra one, then put it contiguous to the westerly pickleball single court that is completely dedicated to pickleball. And then just put the other lines on that. I'll come back in September and I'll voice my, like, get the rest of it done, please, I'll beg you. I'll bring brownies.
You had very, people with similar sentiments were here at the last meeting.
Right.
The Wilsons and some others very articulately voiced your same opinion.
I mean, you know, do we revisit that? I mean, I don't know what to say on this one because I don't see a problem with the lines, but
I don't either.
I don't know.
What happens
you know.
when the pickleball courts are taken by pickleball people and someone wants to play tennis and there's no tennis court available?
Well,
That's where
we're gonna have to sign
That's
it
what
or
we ended up
something,
getting, so I
yeah.
think that's
We
kind of.
talked about that.
Or have pickleball people sign all up and now their tennis people are closed down.
Pickleball, no, I'm actually watching.
You gotta have.
So I think we stay 2 and 2.
I like pickleball.
I think so. I think
All
that's
right,
the way to do it.
2 and 2 and revisit in September and
Yeah.
encourage.
Is that a fair start?
But we have to
That's fair.
get
That's
both
fair.
groups here at the same time.
Yeah, then we could really have it out and see
Wait a
where.
second.
Or invite them for input, whether they come or not.
We already have Ron Labor.
We do.
All right, so I think.
I'm not allowed.
Oh, you're not Ron
I'm
Labor.
not allowed.
We want the court next to the current pickleball.
Yes.
that's great.
It's
It's like
the,
you-
it's the
Or the
third
west
tennis
side.
court
It's on the western side, right.
Amazing. I used to
On
love
the
watching
west side.
Right.
Wimbledon.
Toward the bay, the farthest one is the bay right now.
I think that's, you know, what we gotta-
So it's run right next to it.
Stan Smith.
And is there any money in the recreation
Oh,
department
yeah.
just for a mobile pickleball lines that you can throw right on the court? Is there, it's like $100 that the public works could keep, so if there's no tennis players on an open court, they could just throw the lines down that are temporary lines, and then you take it off.
The
Look
problem,
into it.
the problem
As soon as you
is
do
our
it.
supervisors that work, or a lot of times they're out on the road.
Right.
Especially Josh with the water and sewer construction going on. So let's say you wanna go there at 10 o'clock and nobody's there because they're out working on the road, that'll aggravate it.
No, no, I know.
So-
You're right,
Yeah.
They're not there, they're, on the road.
Any other public questions or comments about any agenda items? Hearing none, I would consider a motion to close the public and to adjourn the meeting to take a few moments and then begin our regular meeting.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilwoman Coleman, second by Councilman Kraft. Anyone opposed? Acclamation then? All ayes?
Aye.
And we'll stand adjourned for a few minutes and then begin our regular meeting.
So Bill,
One eye.
authorizing certain projects.